on the same page. I mean, a really good, consistent definition of soil health. It's the continued capacity of a soil to function as a vital, living ecosystem. Ultimately, that soil is alive, and we need to treat it that way. There's more biology going on in 1 teaspoon of soil or tablespoon of soil than people in the world. But again, for soil health, kind of what we're looking at for soil health, there's really 4 main principles. There's also kind of a 5th principle I'll talk about. The first one is keeping that soil covered, basically armoring that soil so the rain, wind does not impact that soil and move it, transport it off site. Do not disturb that soil, so kind of no tillage or very minimal disturbance. If you have to do some type of tillage out there, less is better. Keeping plants growing throughout the growing season, that living root, for as long as we can throughout the year, and even in the winter. I mean, even as that frost starts to go down, deep down under that, there's some activity still going on. It's not like in the summertime, but if we can keep those living roots in the soil, that's absolutely key. And the 4th principle is diversity in your crop rotation and or your pastures. The more we can get out there, instead of just a monoculture of corn or beans for the whole year, we're feeding that soil throughout the whole year with those cover crops. Ideally, we want a warm season grass, a warm season legume or broadleaf, a cool season grass, and a cool season legume or broadleaf out there. That way, sometime throughout the year, something should be growing and feeding that biology in the soil. With soil health and organic matter and a lot of that, a lot of people think it's what's above ground is really the important factor, when in reality, it's what's below ground and those roots down there. Sometimes 70% of your organic matter comes from the roots in the soil, not what's above the ground. There's been some farms that are pretty intensive crop, and they will run corn silage, take that off, they will plant winter rye, take that off in the spring as a forage, come right back to corn silage, and they're building their soil tests, their soil organic matter in there from the roots. They're taking a lot of biomass off the top side, but in the bottom, they're still have roots out there that are helping supply the biology and feeding that, and the root exudates, and that's the kind of the magic stuff down there in the soil that keeps the biology going. We'll let it run for a while. We'll probably put a good inch on here. I suppose a little background. This one here is one of their pastures that probably was grazed. It's probably in the cycle to get grazed again fairly soon. So it's on the lane out there, but just south of the lane where your other raceway comes up. This one here is where you guys overwintered out there, kind of in the northeast corner out that direction. This one here is across I-43, just corn. Corn looks beat up because when we dig these, we got to put something on top and to dig it out, so it's a little bit beat up, but we tried to keep at least a couple corn plants in there. These 3 are the same soil type for sure. This one's close, but it's not exactly the same. It came from a few miles away from here. Been working with a farm that's no-tilled this for 5 years. It was wheat last year. They put in cover crop mix and no-tilled the soybeans in there. So it's got 5 years of no-till with some cover crops in it. That's kind of the background for now. We'll turn it on and kind of see what happens. There's little or no water in the front jugs. What that shows is nothing ran off. Nothing came off the surface here. The back jugs here, it actually infiltrated and went down through into the soil profile here. So if you remember, this is their grazed pasture. This is their overwintered. I kind of anticipated maybe a little bit of runoff off of this just from the foot traffic out there in the winter, but it's been in long-term grazing situation long enough. There's probably some buffer capacity to that down low once the water got in there. There also could be a little bit getting in around the edges here. There is a little bit of a gap, but not too bad. These soils did dry out. We did water them yesterday after we picked them up, and we watered them again this morning, but the soils around here, we do have a high shrink swell capacity, so if it was a little bit dry, some could have ran along the edge, but that's what, I mean, these should infiltrate more. On these two down here, you can see the front jugs definitely have a little bit more runoff than those down there. Again, this one, I'll say this is more of a conventional tilled. You guys probably do fall manure application and or chisel plow, and then 2 passes in the springtime before planting or something close to that. This one was about 5 years of no-till with a little bit of cover. It is a slight different soil type, but it's still a silt loam. And you can see there is some infiltration, but there's definitely more runoff. My caveat with this one is when we dug it, part of this area right in here actually fell apart. The soil structure just wasn't there in that top plow layer. We patched it in as best as we could. I thought we might get a little more down in here because of that. So that, I mean, it looks pretty good for the most part. Any kind of questions on kind of what we're showing here and what we're seeing?